We are a part of the Mental Health News Radio Network.
You've tuned in to Rescue the Rescuer, the show that focuses on helping first responders who may be experiencing challenges such as addiction, PTSD, relationship failure, and more. We use stories of struggle and recovery to highlight successful survival strategies for those in this powerfully stressful field of work. And now, here's your host, Steven Kavalkovich.
Hey everyone, this is Steven. Thanks for joining me on the show. I'm a former paramedic in long-term recovery from addiction and post-traumatic stress disorder. I've created this podcast to help others who may be experiencing a story similar to mine find a path beyond their problems and towards a life that they deserve. Before we get started with today's episode, let's hear this short message from one of my supporters. I recently read an article that said 81% of Americans would like to become a published author. Chances are you might be one of them, right? I know I am. So what's stopping us? Writing and publishing a book takes a lot of work, can be a pain, and is expensive too, right? Not anymore. For my next book project, I've teamed up with Hassle-Free Books. They're making it easy for me to become an author. They're removing a lot of the fuss and struggle and making it smooth and simple. And it's far more affordable than you could ever imagine. Go to HassleFreeBooks.com and use promo code RESCUE to receive a 10% discount off any book project. Get started right away and become a published author in as little as 45 days. That's HassleFreeBooks.com. Promo code RESCUE. All right, thanks again for joining me, and let's get started with today's show. Welcome back to the Rescue the Rescuer show. We are live at the Code EMS conference up in the Poconos in northeastern Pennsylvania, and I'm really excited to have a guest here from the West Coast, actually. He's one of the keynote speakers from the conference here, and he's got a really compelling story to tell, and I don't know, I know you guys are going to love it because it's geared exactly towards what we talk about on a regular. So really, without further ado, I'm going to let him share the story and let him talk about where he's at now. So I've got Ben Vernon on sitting right across from me. He's a firefighter medic with San Diego Fire Department, and he's here to tell us some really interesting stuff that we need to hear about. So Ben, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you took the time. I know I'm sure a lot of people are trying to get your attention since you did your little keynote this morning. So let's get into it. What happened?
So June 24th, 2015, I worked downtown in the heart of the city, and we have a pretty big homeless population down there. We're the busiest engine company in the city. We run about 7,000 calls a year. Wow. So we're averaging 20 to 25 calls a day. Most of them are medical aids, and most of them are dealing with drugs, alcohol, psychiatric. We deal with a pretty dangerous population. Mm-hmm. I've been there, 3 or 4 years in a row. My crew, we've been together about a year, and we ran a routine medical aid at a trolley stop at 4 p.m. on a Wednesday. It's a beautiful San Diego day.
Totally benign.
Benign.
Yeah.
We were called for an intoxicated male patient, roughly in his 50s, and trolley security was on scene. They were the ones calling us in. It was our 10th call that day, and the third time we'd been at the trolley stop with these trolley security guards. We were joking on the way to the call that, we got to tell these guys to stop drumming up business for us.
Sure.
We don't need to run any more medical aids at the trolley stop. Pull up, and it's the most basic call. I'm turned off. I'm not in any way
like heightened.
Yeah. I could do this call in my sleep. I've been doing this call in my sleep, hundreds of times before. So we grab our gear and walk in. We were at the trolley stop, and the trolley runs, north-south. We couldn't park on that street, so we parked about a block away and had to walk in. I'm surrounded by maybe 4 or 5 trolley security guards, and I have a drug intoxicated male. He's belligerent, but he's not violent. He's too intoxicated really to put up much of a fight. What we didn't know and what we weren't told is that there's been a bystander there who had been creating issues and he was bucking authority. He wasn't being cooperative. He wanted to help the patient, but he wasn't listening to the trolley security guards. And the trolley security guards weren't very assertive. They're not highly trained police officers. They're mall cops, essentially, right? So they have utility belts and ticket books, but they don't have that 6 months of training, or you know what I mean.
They don't have tasers.
They have tasers. They have pepper spray. They have guns.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, but they don't have the scene presence that a cop does.
And they're not used to that kind of stuff on a regular.
Right.
Sure.
So what they didn't tell us is that they had been arguing with this bystander for about 20 minutes, trying to get him away from the intoxicated patient, and they really pissed him off. I met the guy. I met the man that ended up trying to kill me. He gave me a turnover. It wasn't a very good turnover. I could tell right away he had no medical training. But I listened to him for 15, 20 seconds, and I said, okay, thank you. He said, no problem, and he walked away. What I didn't realize is he didn't walk very far. He walked around behind me, and then he re-engaged and started arguing with the trolley security guards. I had my back to him the whole time. Again, I'm surrounded by my crew of 4, and then maybe 5, 6 trolley security guards. So there's a ton of people there, and I'm in this bubble surrounded by
you're like
safety.
You're thinking, you're not thinking anything.
No, and I
happen.
Yeah. Right, and I hear some arguing behind me, and then next I know I hear fighting, and I turn around, and this gentleman is punching these trolley security guards in the face, and so I run over and we tackle, but we all spill over a railing. And I actually, by going over the railing, I separated myself from my crew. And so as we got to our feet, it's just me and this guy that's been punching people. I recognize immediately he's the guy I just got a turnover from 15 seconds earlier. And I didn't know that he'd been on scene for 20 minutes arguing with people. So as far as I know, I get a turnover, and 15 seconds later, we're fist fighting.
Wow.
And I can't figure out why we're fist fighting. Like, what could have possibly been said in 15 seconds to make us all, to make everybody start swinging. So I am trying to calm this guy down. Well, he pulls a knife. He keeps it hidden behind his back. And I'm trying to talk him down and calm the situation. And he lunges at me, and I have nowhere to go. I lean up against this railing, and I kind of run out of room to run away. And I thought he was just punching me, but he went for my kidney. I missed my kidney, but he punctured my lower flank, and then he pulled a knife out and he stabbed me in the chest, right behind my left arm. Wow. And it punctured my lung and broke my rib. And then he pulled that out and he went for my head. And as he pulled the knife out of my chest, it knocked the wind out of me. All the air in my lung went sideways. I doubled over because it winded me, and he went for my head and he missed. And I felt the knife go through my hair. I got as lucky as anyone can get. Yeah. My partner saw the guy punching me, didn't realize he had a knife. He jumps over the railing and tackles the guy and lands on top of him, and the guy then just takes the opportunity to start stabbing my partner. So he stabs my partner 3 times. He stabbed me twice. And that is how that call went down. It was lightning fast. And
I'm sure in the blink of an eye. Yeah.
So it turns out the whole thing was caught on tape. One of the security guards was wearing a body cam, and the fight lasts less than 5 seconds. And he stabbed 2 men 5 times in less than 5 seconds. Like, it is lightning fast. Yeah. So
it's never like the movies.
It was nothing like the movies. So that was that call.
When was this, by the way?
June 24th, 2015.
Okay, so just over 2 years ago.
Yeah, just over 2 years ago. So I got rushed to the hospital. They gave me a chest tube and reinflated my lung, and I spent a couple days in the hospital. They sent me home with tons of opiates and painkillers, which was, it was nice for a while. But then I started getting the opiate gut. After about 10 days, I was constipated and stomach cramps and just
probably withdrawn a little bit, maybe too.
Yeah, and because I know how addictive opiates are, everyone does. I was like, okay, I don't want to get hooked on this stuff. I need to stop. So I quit cold turkey, and it was fine, except what I hadn't anticipated was my subconscious, my brain started functioning full speed. And that first night, I had a nightmare that just, I'm back at the trolley stop, but I can see, I can smell the urine on the street. I can taste, right? It's like the most realistic nightmare. And I rip this guy apart in my dream. He stabs me. I throw him to the ground and I bite his face off. And I taste the blood in my mouth. And I sit up screaming and I'm soaked in sweat. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, what was that? That was gnarly. And I go downstairs at 2 a.m. and I'm soaked in sweat. And I just try to calm myself and bring my heart rate down. And then, of course, I can't go back to sleep. I'm wide awake.
Sure.
Well, that starts every night. Like, I start having these dreams.
Like recurring, was it
same? You're right, and
same thing,
ripping the guy apart and waking up screaming, and then next night go to bed, fight at the truck stop, rip the guy apart, wake up screaming. Right, and so after that, I was like, okay, well, then I couldn't sleep at all because I knew the nightmares were coming.
You're afraid of going to sleep.
Right, I don't want to, and it's so realistic that in my head I feel like I've actually murdered the guy, and I feel I have all the same physiological reactions as actually killing somebody, and that's just. God, gnarly. And I'm thinking, well, great. I'm a psychopath that's just been unlocked. Like I'm
so you
crazy.
Start questioning your own sanity.
Right, and no sleep at all. And so then, no sleeping at all. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I got to go see a professional. Now, the one cool advantage is because it was caught on tape. I didn't know this. It was caught on tape. It was released to the news. The news media started playing it in slow motion for everyone to see. It happens so fast you can't see it in real time, but in slow motion you can see it. So there I am, 20 days later, I'm watching the news.
And you're all over it.
Yeah, and the guy that took the camera was actually standing right behind me. So it was my dreams played in slow motion on TV. It was surreal. It was cool because I was like, holy crap. Everybody on my job now knows what my nightmares are, right? And it's a gnarly video. When you see it, you go, oh my God, like that dude almost got murdered. And I remember actually being so relieved because I thought, well, I can go get mental help and no one will make fun of me.
Because people could see it, because there's evidence of it.
Right.
It's not just your experience, you telling people about it.
If I say, hey, I got stabbed, you'd be like, oh, that sucks. But you get to see it in slow motion and the anger on the guy's face and the knife going into my chest.
That's a whole different thing.
It was awesome. Because
you felt, but that's the crazy thing. You felt safe to finally get help.
Yes.
Because everybody,
like
how backwards is that?
Right. Exactly. It's funny you say that. Yeah. But I remember thinking, okay, like if I would ever tell somebody, hey, I'm really struggling mentally, I need mental help. I know anyone that saw the video went, yeah, dude, you should totally go get help, right? No one would be like, you pussy, because they've seen it and they've seen how wicked it is. And of course, I started getting calls and emails and texts of people that saw the video and they're like, holy crap, man, like, are you okay? And that was really cool. So part of my learning, and this is where I learned so much about mental health help. I didn't know anything about mental health help. I knew nothing. I didn't know where to start. And we don't have them on call at the fire service, we have a chaplain, but
it's not part of the culture.
Right. We don't have a psychologist on call. So I called the city and it was a workers' comp related issue. And they said, yeah, we'd love to send you a workers' comp. We'll send you to a workers' comp psychologist. Okay. Sounds good. Like, let's do this. And so I set an appointment. I go meet this guy and he tells me right off the bat, hey man, I've never worked with firefighters before. I've worked with car accident victims and I help people who've been in really bad car accidents get back on the road.
Okay.
I said, well, okay, man, that's cool. I'm a fireman. I've never worked with psychologists before. I said, I also work with car accident victims. This is going to be great. Like, right?
I get a feeling there's going to be a downturn here.
It didn't go well at all. I told the guy about my nightmares and he said, well, if you're having trouble sleeping, you should probably lay off the caffeine.
I'm speechless too.
I know nothing about the profession. I know that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, right? That's such bad advice. And, right. And so I tell him like, look, I'm really afraid that if I go back to work, I'm so edgy right now and so ready to fight everybody. Yeah. And the way I tell it, I never got to turn on the fight. Like,
you didn't have time to.
Right. It was over before it even started. And so I never got to fight back. And then.
So now you're hypervigilant.
I can't turn off the fight. I'm ready to fight everybody all the time. And it was exhausting, right? first of all, I'm not sleeping, but then
your adrenaline's
always,
constantly up.
Always. Yeah. And of course, if anybody even looked at me funny, I'm like, oh, are we fighting? Right. And I would be like ready to go. It was exhausting.
Shell shock.
Yeah. So I tell the guy, hey, I'm really afraid if I go back to work, I'm going to hit first, right? I'm going to attack the next person that looks at me funny. And that does not make for a good first responder.
Or my freedom. Or
right. I'm going to end up in jail for just, punching some grandma in the face because she was talking trash. And he goes, well, Ben, if you're feeling stressed when you go back to work, just don't run any calls.
Oh, another great solution.
Right. And at that point, I'm like...
Has he ever heard of a firefighter before?
Exactly. But I realize now and that's probably my darkest point, was sitting at home at 2 a.m, afraid to go to sleep. I have gone against the grain and sought professional help, and it was absolutely useless. It was useless.
Yeah.
And I remember for the first time understanding suicide. Now, I wasn't going to kill myself, but suicide is when you understand
why people get sick.
Yes, because you don't have that. There's no way out. You don't see a way out, and you're in a lot of pain. You're frustrated, angry, and you cannot see a light at the end of the tunnel. And that was where I was at. I was like, I'm done. I'm probably not going to ever work as a firefighter again. I'm not going to go back to work. So there goes
my identity.
Right. I've spent years working hard to be on the rescue team and the hazmat team and on the USAR team. Right. I've put my life into this, and I'm done. And this sucks. Right. And so I just remember sitting in the dark, and I was like, okay, this is about as bad as it gets. And I understand suicide. And I'm like, well, there has to be a way out of this. Like, I have to figure this out. And I didn't have a way. So I just kind of sat there for a while. And then my saving grace, we talk about peer support. We had a guy on our job who was a firefighter, but he was a cop, and he got in a shooting, and he won. He shot and killed a guy who tried to shoot and kill him. But it was so much for him that he quit and ended up joining the fire service. But I remember him when he was on probation. He would come through the station, and everybody would sit him down, and they'd want to hear the story about how he shot and killed a guy. And he was always very candid and open about it. But the part I'm suddenly remembering at 2 a.m. in the dark is that he described what the psychologist had told him after the shooting. And he had never met the psychologist, but the psychologist came into his room and said, okay, let me outline the next 6 months of your life. And he said, do you have a girlfriend? And my buddy goes, yeah, I got a girlfriend. He goes, well, that's over. And my buddy's like, man, I just met you, right? I've just been involved in the shooting, and you're telling me I'm going to break up with my girlfriend? Like, screw you.
Thanks.
Right. Like, thanks, but why don't you go take a long walk off a short pier? But he said, yeah, you're going to be hypervigilant, and, anytime a car backfires, you're going to hit the deck, and you're going to be jumpy and angry, and this is going to happen for the next 6 months. And the part that I remember suddenly in the dark is...
Sounds like programming to me.
Yeah, but he said over 6 months, everything that the guy said would come true came true. And I thought that was really cool. And suddenly I just wanted him to outline the next 6 months of my life, right?
I see.
I don't care how bad it is. If I know there's an end to it.
Some kind of,
right. Then I go, okay.
Kind of outline or map to this.
Yes, an outline or map is what I was looking for. How do I get out on the other side of this? So I went and found him, and I said, hey, man, you got to help me. Like, I'm in bad shape. And he smiled, and I knew he knew exactly what I was going through. And he said, well, Ben, he's like, I'm not a psychologist. I can't outline the next 6 months of your life. But he goes, why don't I give you the number to a police psychologist, and you can go talk to them yourself? And that's all he said, but I credit him so much with being there for me when I needed him most. And it was also the most simple, amazing solution to a problem, right? Like, why couldn't I have thought of that?
Right. A lot of times it takes,
right.
We don't figure that stuff out.
No.
That's why I believe God, or whatever you want to call it, puts people in our lives for that reason.
Just to steer you in the right direction.
Just to kind of.
And it was such a simple solution, but I was like, okay. And so our police department in San Diego has a company they call Focus, Focus. And, as police, they don't like paperwork. They don't like trails because they're afraid that if anything comes out in paperwork, that they're having psychological issues,
Correct.
They'll lose their badges, right? They'll lose their jobs. So this company doesn't do any paperwork, refuses to do any. And the beauty is they send a bill to the city at the end of the month and say, we're billing you for 80 hours. They don't say, we saw 80 different people. We don't
say no notes, no nothing.
Nothing. And so the city has the agreement. They go, okay. And they just bill for 80 hours. And so I call the psychologist, a police psychologist, a guy named Dr. Mark Foreman. And I said,
not Mark Furman, right?
No, not Mark Furman. That's a different police guy.
I had to.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting session.
Been a conversation.
So yeah, I meet up with this guy and I said, look, the police department has a contract with you. The fire department doesn't. I don't know if I can pay. I don't know how to do this. And he said, look, man, I'll see you for free. You just come in, I'll take care of you. Mm. And I will never forget that. And I credit him with the third guy to save my life. My partner who jumped in and tackled, and then peer support, my buddy who was a cop, he helped me. And then this psychologist agreed to see me for free. And I meet with him, and it turns out he was a former San Diego PD sergeant. And so right away, it's a cop talking to a fireman, and man, we had fun and
of course
teasing each other. He's got the same sense of humor,
dark humor,
yes,
language,
yes.
Yeah,
and he understands our terminology. And when I say, I'm having trouble, he doesn't say, well, don't go on any calls.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Right.
They say that pain shared is pain lessened. How would you feel if you had someone to unload your burdens with? Someone who has probably felt how you feel and been in your shoes. Someone who wants to help you to manifest dramatic and lasting change in your life. Not only do I host this show and speak around the country, I also do individual coaching and mentoring. I want to help you to climb out of the hole of isolation, despair, and hardship. Contact me at rescuetherescuer.com to set up your free, no-obligation consultation. I'm confident that together we can develop a plan that is tailor-made to you and your goals and purpose.
So I felt like I found the perfect guy. And of course, if I could share anything, as I've traveled the country and tell the story that I'm telling you, it is so obvious to me now that not all psychologists are the same, but that makes so much sense, right? Like if you're having a heart problem, you go to a cardiologist, you don't go to an orthopedist.
Right.
And why before my incident, I thought a psychologist is a psychologist, but some of them, specialize in children. Some of them specialize in drug and rehab. Some of them specialize in PTSD and first responders.
Right.
So why would I think a guy that does car accident victims would work for me, right? That's just so dumb. But as I've been traveling the country, people are like, yeah, I tried psychology one time, and the guy or girl, didn't.
The girl cried on the floor when I told her about the call I went on.
Yes. That's a common one, is that I tell the story of a horrible thing, and the psychologist says, please stop, I can't take it. Which,
like, well, maybe I should be billing you then. What do you...
Right. Well, isn't this your job to listen to people's horrible stories? So yeah, that's a common theme. And then, of course, now looking back, I'm like, well, of course they're not all the same. They're not all equal.
You didn't know what you didn't know.
Right. But again, that's one of those like, how did I not see that ahead of time? I feel so stupid. But anyway, this psychologist goes, well, Ben, you have PTSD. And I said, Doc, no way, man. No way. That's reserved for military. Because those guys their gunfights last hours, sometimes days long. Their guys die. Their buddies get blown up.
Seconds,
right. My thing's 10 seconds. Both me and my partner walked away. I go, there's no way in 10 seconds I'm going to develop PTSD. And he goes, well, have you ever seen the definition of PTSD? And I said, no. So he gets out the big book, and these psychologists, they have a big signs and symptoms. DSM-5. Yeah. And so looking at that book, they look at all your signs and symptoms and go, okay, you're bipolar, or, oh, look, you have schizophrenia. Like, these are all the things, all your problems. And so he pulls out for PTSD. And the very first definition, it says, are you a first responder? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, I didn't know we were in the definition of PTSD. Like, how did I not know that? So I felt like a big dummy. And then, he just showed me more and more criteria, more and more physical and psychological symptoms. And I'm reading this and I'm seeing all of my signs and symptoms. And so when I read through it, I go, okay, like, yeah, I meet this criteria. I've got PTSD. And, as I travel the country, I just share the definition of PTSD and I show all the criteria. And I think there's a lot of people in the room that are sitting there and looking at that.
Jaw drops.
Right. And they're going, holy crap, I've got PTSD. And so just sharing the definition. And one of the things I've learned, where do we get mental health training in our career?
we don't.
Well,
it's reactive when something happens, if at all.
Right. I teach EMT in San Diego, and the mental health chapter is covered on the first day of class. There are 12 slides. So the very first day, you get mental health slides, 12 of them, and then you never see them again, ever. They never come back. Right? And I take rescue classes and swiftwater rescue and auto extrication, and there's fire classes and different levels of firefighting and wildland firefighting and shipboard firefighting. There is no mental health in the fire service or EMS at all. And so if you weren't paying attention on day one, those 12 slides, you missed it.
Well,
you missed it.
Then also, as being an EMS person, whenever you take any EMT test, research, whatever, what's the first answer to every question?
Scene safety BSI?
Yeah. No mental health. None of that.
Right.
I'm physically safe, but they don't address any kind of mental fitness at all.
Right.
And I swear, if I can do one more thing in this world, it is to change that. And I don't work in EMS anymore, but if I can help one person stay in it because of that, amen to that. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. I agree. I'm with you. And that's why I'm traveling, just sharing the word that I learned. And I feel, again, like I learned everything the hard way, kind of.
Best lessons are.
Yeah, by accident, like most things. Just, that's weird.
Well, something you said too that I was sharing with somebody about how PTSD has become such a buzzword.
Yes.
I was watching, I don't know if you watch it, Curb Your Enthusiasm on HBO the other night. Second episode of the season. Larry David's character, his manager, Jeff's wife's daughter, is getting married. And she goes, "Oh, well, who's Sammy marrying? Oh, he's a military Afghanistan war veteran. Aren't you worried about the PTSD?" That was the first thing he said. Right. And that's when I said, man, now it's just become so ingrained in the culture
it's a joke.
That it means nothing.
Right. And using the term but not knowing what the definition is, that's one of the things, like when I read the definition, I go, oh, okay, I see. And one of the parts of the definition of PTSD is to have signs and symptoms that last longer than a month. And I think most EMS responders, you run a really bad call like a dead kid, you're going to have nightmares, you're going to be hypervigilant, you're going to be angry, but those usually don't last longer than a month, right? It lasts a week, and then you're able to come to grips with it. Or, like most people, then they start drinking or opiates or whatever they can do to kind of get them through dealing with that call.
Till the next one,
right? And so understanding that it's actually normal to have those signs and symptoms for days, weeks. It's when you get longer than a week, you're into the months, that now you've got the disorder, right? You've got something, you need to get professional help. So the very next thing the doc did is he goes, well, you got PTSD, he diagnosed me in 12 seconons, which pissed me off, right? I'm like,
of course.
How did you do that so fast?
Come on, man. You didn't do a blood test.
Yeah, exactly. Make it a little harder to figure out.
Can I turn my head and cough, please, or something?
Shouldn't I be in a gown? You just diagnosed me and I'm wearing shorts and I'm not even ready for this. He says, there's a treatment. And he goes, it's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprogramming. And at this point, I'm having trouble keeping up with the doc. I'm like, I just learned 2 seconds ago I have PTSD. You're already telling me there's a treatment. And he goes, oh, yeah. And he goes, after we do it, he goes, I'll get you back to work in a couple of weeks. Right? What? That's what? How's that possible? So sure enough, this EMDR thing is the coolest thing ever. And he always warns me, some people don't respond well to it, so don't sell it as the greatest thing ever. But I can't help it. I think it is the greatest thing ever. And essentially the way he described it to me is, as first responders, we get really good at shutting off emotion and going pure logic, right? And so when you have a kid who's injured, that's not the time to feel,
you
right?
go down the algorithm. And,
you just go mechanical, right? First step, second step, third step, right? And you look at the kid like a little machine, what's broken? How do I fix it? Bleeding here, stop that. Broken leg, do this. And you just don't feel, right? That's not the time to oh, I'm so sorry for you, right? You don't do that. He said, but over time, and let's say and I'm making this up, but the right side of your brain is logic and the left side is emotion. As we shut off the emotion time and time and time again, you get off balance. And he said one of the signs you're off balance is that, that emotion doesn't die. It only gets buried alive. And so what happens is you've got it suppressed. It starts leaking out in other ways. Mm-hmm. And you're getting emotional in other areas that doesn't call for emotion. And when he said that, I started thinking, I remember watching a commercial at home, and I'm so grateful I was by myself. My wife wasn't there. And it was a hemorrhoid commercial, and this grown man's got hemorrhoids, and his dad comes in. He goes, "Oh, son, you got the family hemorrhoids," and he hands him the hemorrhoid cream. He goes, "Oh, thanks, Dad. You've always been there for me." And they hug. And all of a sudden, like,
waterworks.
Right, I'm crying, and I don't even have hemorrhoids. But I'm like, what is happening? Like, why am I wiping my tears out of my eyes? Where's this emotion coming from? And so as he said that in my session, I was like, okay, there's something to that. Like, you suppress for so long that you got to let it out somewhere.
Yeah, it's like a pressure valve. Yeah.
It's a pressure valve. So I was like, okay. And he said, so what we're going to do, and it's so simple. It's also maddening that it's easy, but I follow his fingers kind of like a sobriety test. He puts his fingers in front of my face, like 3 fingers, like a Boy Scout salute, and he goes from right to left, and you track with your eyes, and you're following his fingers. But as you're shifting to right side then to left side, what's happening is you're activating both sides of your brain. And so you're getting the logic and emotions both activated. And so a very simple treatment is he'd say, well, tell me about the medical aid. What's the first thing you remember about that medical aid where you ended up getting stabbed? And I said, well, I remember the tones went off, the call came in, and we saw that the address was the trolley stop, and all of us kind of moaned. We're like, oh, we got to go back again. And we get on the rig, and we're driving to the call, and none of us were talking about the call. We're talking about baseball or, you know whatever, what I mean? Yeah. And he said, okay, stop. Think about that. Just think about where you were at mentally while you were driving to the call. And I said, okay. And then I follow his fingers for maybe 15, 20 seconds. And what was happening is in my head, I'm thinking, well, I'm on my way to a call where I almost died, but I'm not thinking about the call. I should know better. I know how dangerous it is downtown with people who are psych or on drugs. I should have been more on my guard. And then at the same time, I'm thinking, but why would I think being stabbed was a problem? No firefighter in the history of our department has ever been stabbed or shot. That doesn't
ever happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But dude, you need to always be on your game. You know better than that. Yeah, and so I'm going back and forth, and what it took me a while to realize, not that day, but weeks later, I'm actually going logic, emotion. And so instead of being all on the right side, all logic.
You're starting the process.
I'm starting the process of being able to reapply emotion where it needs to be. And I didn't know what was happening at first. And so we made it about halfway through the call, and, our session was up, and I walked out of his office and I felt better. Like, I felt relief. It was a very, and I thought maybe he Miyagi'd me, I was like, what did he do? Did I just wax on, wax off? Now I know karate. Like, what just happened there? And I'm driving home and I'm just going, man, why do I feel lighter? I feel less stressed. And so after 3 or 4 sessions with him of doing this treatment, and I talk about the entire call and I get all the way through it, I felt amazing. And I slept great with no nightmares. And then it was at that point I started thinking of all those calls that I've carried with me that have bothered me for my entire career that I dared never talk about because I knew I'd start crying. And I wrote all of those down on a piece of paper, and I went back to his office and I said, okay, let's EMDR the 12-year-old girl that's seized to death. Let's EMDR the woman that was raped. Let's do these calls too. And he said, yeah, no problem. And so we did it. I talked away through some of these calls are 10 years old, but I'm talking about it and waving his fingers. And I felt like I was able to actually put them to rest for the first time in my life. And I'm going, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like, how is it EMS? We should be doing this once a week. Like, it should be part of our...
It should be part of like roll call or something.
Yes. Like, once a month, hey, you got to go into the office, into the chamber, and you got to talk to the guy with the fingers, and he's going to wave his fingers in front of your eyes, and you're going to talk about a call. Like, how is that not even, like, at our department, we have a required hour and a half we have to work out. I love that. I think that's the greatest thing ever, having to run, work out, lift, just to stay fit. Man, we need an hour of just of mental therapy, right?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, like, hearing everything you're saying, I've done EMDR myself, and blew me away.
Right.
Because, like, I still get emotional sometimes. Like, you could see it here. Sometimes I get it because I think about it, but it doesn't paralyze me.
Right. Doesn't shut you
Like
down.
some of those things that like I think back to that bothered me so much that they inhibited my life.
Right.
They don't do that. I can get emotional because I'm sad about it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's destroying me.
Correct.
Or paralyzing
It's
me.
not bottled up.
Yeah, it's not like, oh my God, I can't talk about that. Let me run.
Right.
Or let me go put a needle in my arm, which was my thing.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I don't do that. You know, I get to talk about it. And matter of fact, sitting here right before you came in, a girl that I've never met before sending me a message on Facebook. She's about to go to EMT school. She's going to do her first ride time on Saturday.
Awesome.
Any advice? I said, yeah, I have one piece of advice. If it bothers you, talk about it immediately. She goes, are you sure that's really going to help? I said, well, I can tell you, if you don't, you might wind up ruining your life like I did. I can tell you, because that stuff that we stuff, you know,
Right.
I share this on my show on episode 0, I think, of this show, about the psychologist that went into the psychology professor went into the classroom, held up a half a glass of water, and said, what's the question? And everybody says, oh, is the glass half empty or half full? She said, no, that's not the right question. The right question is, how heavy is it? And they're like, what do you mean? She goes, well, this glass is half full. However, if I hold it in front of my body for an hour, my arm will start to get sore. If I hold it out in front of my body for the rest of the day, I won't be able to move my arm tomorrow. The longer I hold on to it, the heavier it becomes.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, there you go.
Right.
Share it, you know, and like
Get it out.
And stuff like EMDR. I think, like you said, I think anybody, especially first responders, don't be afraid of it. It's not scary.
Just for me, when I first sat down and he started waving his fingers, I was like, are you
Probably
gonna
weirded
try to-
out.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, are you going to hypnetize me and I'm going to wake up wearing a tutu? You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
It was like my pants going to be unbuttoned or something.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't like this. And so it took me a little bit of him trying to convince me like what it was and, you know, telling me what it was. I was like, yeah, okay. And I was kind of, you know, hesitant and I don't know if it was very effective the first time because I just kept staring at him like, what are you doing, weirdo? Like, you know, this is not natural. But once I figured out what it did and how it was working, then I couldn't wait to do it. You know, then it was the highlight of my day was going and talking to this guy and getting the process.
So now I bet you, I'm guessing, because I see you now, and I obviously didn't know you then, but you seem very light. You seem very enthusiastic about life. Like you're not weighed down.
No. And I tell people, I feel like I have an ace up my sleeve now because when the pager goes off and it says pediatric CPR, instead of dreading it, I go, okay, this call's going to suck, right? And so on the way to the call, I'm calling the doc going, hey, you know, I'm going to need a session tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. So I can process it immediately.
That's great.
Right? Process it immediately, not carry it with me. And so now I feel invincible. Now I feel like I can run any horrible call and I'll get mental health help immediately and I'm done, right? I don't have to carry it and let it bother me for a long time.
And you know, we've got like 5 minutes left, but I want to share this. I want to ask this. Because of your experience, I'm imagining that it's become kind of a ripple effect amongst your peers.
Huge ripple effect. Yeah. And one of them was, and I am truly grateful for the leadership in our department. I went to them and said, hey, this company Focus, we don't have a contract with them. They've been seeing me for months, helping me get back to work. Can you help me? And they said, no problem. And my chiefs went to the city and got a contract with Focus. They just wanted it so that I wouldn't have to pay any bills. But as soon as it got word on our job,
everybody jumped on, right?
Everybody, 80 people immediately signed up to go get professional help with Focus. We have 800 in our department. So you're talking 10% of our job immediately set up appointments.
And then they tell 2 people.
Right.
And they tell 2 people.
But it rocked our chiefs were like, holy crap. Like we didn't realize this many people needed help. And so it's really helped open up our eyes in our department on getting the right mental health help. So yeah, it's been a huge ripple effect. Our peer support program was weak and it's gaining popularity. We're getting more people trained up. More money's being spent on training our peer support staff. So yeah, it's been nothing but positive changes for our department.
Well, I think about all the guys and women, men and women, I'm sure, that are going to get to retire, get to maybe save their marriages. I mean, that's...
We have the highest divorce rate, right? Military, EMS. Yeah. Is it because we're exceptionally bad at picking spouses? No.
Just because we don't know how to handle relationships.
Right. Well, we bottle up all this stuff.
We don't because of everything we've been talking about.
Right.
If we start addressing that, maybe kids won't have to be without their parents,
Right.
and people will get to retire at their prime age of retirement and not lose their jobs or wind up with a bullet in their mouth.
Right. And instead of letting the emotion bottle up and then you take it out on your wife for no reason.
Yeah. Or wind up in jail because of or whatever,
Right.
or wind up,
turning toward booze and alcohol and drugs.
Drugs and everything. I mean, that's, and that's, obviously, as we talked about before, that's why I do what I do. I don't get on, I'm never going to get on an ambulance or engine ever again. But if I can help one person by bringing someone like you on the show to talk about this and give somebody the opportunity to get some help, then everything I went through is more than worth it.
Absolutely. I feel the same way, man. So thank you.
It's crazy. Ben, I know you said you're traveling around. So can people reach you? Can people get, how would people find you if they wanted to get you to come and talk to them or something?
Yeah. So my email is ben@benvernon.com. Easy enough. I'm on Facebook and, I'm traveling. Let's see, I'll be in New Jersey next week for the New Jersey EMS statewide EMS conference, and I'm speaking for GEMS, the EMS Today conference next year in February. So I'm out there, I'm around. But yeah, just send me an email, and I'm really good about sharing my cell phone, and people can call me and we can talk.
Dude, awesome. Well, Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure. We got this in the right amount of time. It's been a pleasure to have you on here. I'm glad you took the time today.
Thank you.
And, we'll make sure that everybody gets to, I'll put your email and everything on the show notes so everybody can find you.
Perfect.
Guys, this has been a great episode of Rescue the Rescuer. We're at the Code EMS conference up in the Poconos. Check out their website. Check out benvernon.com, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next week. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I really hope it'll help you or your loved one. If you get a chance, I really would appreciate it if you could head over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and leave a review. It will really help me out in many ways. Take care everyone, and remember, you are not alone in your struggle.
I want to give a big shout out to one of our supporters, the Addictions Academy. The Addictions Academy is the world's foremost accredited trainer of addiction coaches, addiction counselors, interventionists, and international master addiction coaches, offering on-site training at your rehab or facility, live virtual classroom webinars, or on-demand classes covering an extensive availability of courses and certifications. Check them out at theaddictionsacademy.com or call Dr. Callie Estes and her team at 1-800-706-0318.
Thanks for listening to Rescue the Rescuer. For show notes and more, head on over to rescuetherescuer.com.
We are a part of the Mental Health News Radio Network.com. This show is produced by James Healy of RecoveryInnovators.com. If you have a message and want to start a show of your own, contact him and let him know that we sent you.